Okay, so I grew up in Aberdeen, and my mom was a junior high school, specifically eighth grade, English teacher for 27 years. So you know that we did not have any money. And so she always, and to this day, always has at least one side hustle. And so when I was in the fifth grade, she opened a flower shop in our backyard. And we lived in this antebellum home, and in the back was a cinder block little. I guess it was probably the garage at some points. The end of our driveway. She opened this and that flowers, and so we just always had a flower shop in our backyard, which meant that it was never ever closed. People came, people called, 24/7. There was always, if your grandmother died at 10 p.m. Saturday night, then you're calling our house at 10 p.m. Saturday night because we had to get that casket piece going, immediately. And so I just thought this is really so funny because that's just how I grew up. And I grew up in this flower shop. She was the town florist. If there was another flower shop, I don't know, maybe there was. But she pretty much did everybody's weddings. Her sister, my aunt, she was the baker of the town, and she did everybody's wedding cakes. And so, I just grew up every Saturday. There was a wedding. We were decorating a wedding. We were, helping my aunt take the cake in. That was part of our life. We were delivering flowers to the funeral home and the nursing home. And that's just what, you're. And so then I thought, and here's Hannah, who I taught art in high school. And now that's her life, except it's not in her backyard, thank goodness. She can maybe close her doors every now and then. So anyway, when I guess growing up, there's a family there in Aberdeen that my mom did all of the daughters and sons, their weddings. She did all the flowers for all their weddings, and then there was this granddaughter, and when she was little, she would always see us or see my mom, and she'd say, "Miss Ann, when I grow up, I'm going to get married on Halloween, and I want you to decorate my wedding." And this was when she was like 9 years old. She never failed. Every time she saw us, she always said that. Well, she got engaged in 2020, and her mom called, and she said, "Well, I know you know the news. Delta's getting married. Halloween's on a Saturday this year. And there's a blue moon that night." And she was the baby of the family. And they said, this is it. We're blowing it out. And so we had already, Mother had already done the wedding for the older sister. So they live out it's really in Okolona. It's a huge piece of property. Has this big, they call it a barn. I'm going to go ahead and start playing this so you can see. And so they, we knew the setup. We knew, where things were going to happen and how it's going to be. And they said, "We want it to be Halloween and do whatever you want to do." We never met with the bride. Never sent her a picture. We never talked to her. She just 100% trusted us. And we knew that she liked really funky stuff. She's the person who has Halloween decorations all year long. She wears Halloween all the time. She's always got on pumpkins or skulls or whatever. That's just her. She's a Halloween freak, always has been. So we're always, even before she ever even had a boyfriend, I was like, "Oh, I can't wait till that day we get to decorate Delta's wedding." And because we knew that it would be, that they'd let us do whatever we wanted. And so I guess in my brain, I'd kind of been planning this for years, I would see things and think, "Oh man, I never even knew if she was going to get married." But in the back of my head, I was always planning it, I guess. So So we got started that summer, and I'm showing you all this, hoping that you'll see that a lot of this. I mean, this is a very large scale, but it's very doable, and it's something you could do on your porch or on your dining room table or whatever. Um, we had to do things in bulk, so when we started looking for things for Halloween decorations, we were ordering cases of it, not one thing. And so we really, we had to look for things that were going to make a big statement, make a big impact. And we wanted it to be spooky and beautiful. So I was kind of the spooky person. Mother was the beautiful person. But we also worked with other vendors. We worked with a guy in Pontotoc who has a place called Event Rentals, and he's very knowledgeable about lighting, and he had done the other weddings too. So, he guided us in tinting what they call the barn, and then swapping out all of his typical lighting with black light so that everything would glow in the dark. And he really helped us a lot with making sure that, when you're going to be in a huge barn that's completely tinted in black fabric, that you can still see all of the hard work that you put into this. So, these are just, some of this is in the process of it, kind of showing you the stages of it, because I guess we probably started working on Wednesday or Thursday before this happened to get it set up. So, some of this, you'll just see some of it's in the working stages and some of it is in the actual finished stages. Those were the bridesmaids bouquet holders. You can see those. They're in the process. This is where the wedding reception, that was where the wedding ceremony took place. Now, that fire pit in the middle, it was built out, with a bonfire. And Steve, who I called him the first day, I was like, Steve, I cannot do this if you're not going to help me, because he's like my right-hand man. And so we knew that before the bride came down the aisle that we wanted there to be, the dry ice and the smoke, the fog coming out. And we didn't have access to electricity in the fire. We knew also we couldn't have a bonfire going because it was actually still hot. You know how Halloween is. It's never cold on Halloween. So Steve was dressed as the Grim Reaper.
No, I was not.
It was not Steve. I could not find a photo of you dressed in that. And so he came out before the bride with this bucket and lurching around. Yeah, and he had to pour, because you had to put water in it. He poured the water. It was the creepiest thing ever, but it was also very awesome, super dramatic. And so anyway, at that was where the wedding ceremony took place, and then everybody moved over to the barn for the reception. So the skeletons were another thing. I worked on those for a while before I wanted to dress them up as like a bride and groom. And just everything was super, super funky. But the flowers were gorgeous and so much fun to, how fun is it to get to do that? To get to do these beautiful flowers, but make them in a skull, and for the bridesmaids. So when we went out the first day to just kind of scope out the property and talk about how we were going to do all of this with skeletons and lots of skeletons. I don't know how many skeletons we ended up buying to do this with, but the previous wedding, we had tinted the entire barn in white, and it was very traditional, and I think it was winter, and it had lots of white trees and white lights and all this. So we were completely on the other end of the spectrum with this. So we go in, and in this huge barn, there's never been an animal. It's really just a huge shed, concrete floor, big metal building. But it's full of vehicles. And so the father of the bride, he's a retired Army colonel. And he was in Delta Storm. That was where he was deployed to Delta Storm. And while he was there, that's when he found out that his wife was pregnant. That's why Delta is named Delta, because that's what he was doing. So anyway, he has this huge collection of antique Army vehicles that he is constantly restoring. He never sells them. He just keeps getting more. And so he said, look, y'all can do whatever you want with these vehicles. If y'all want to use them in the decorations, you can. And we were like, what? And I mean, because these are kept under cover, at all times. And I thought, I cannot believe he's going to let us put, spooky cobwebs and skeletons into this. But he did. And so we told him which ones we wanted to use and where we wanted those placed. And so a few days before the wedding, that's what he did. He put them, he moved them out of the barn, and that's not them, but you'll start to see, it's like the ambulance, all these different like eras of ambulances, and maybe it's World War I also. I don't know. I'm not a car person. And so those were lining the property as you came in through the driveway, were all of these different vehicles, and we had the skeletons in them, and we had all the, little funny sayings, to lead you up into the property. We put them on bicycles. They had a bicycle built for 2 or 3, and, that was to mark where people would know to turn in and come into it. So that was a really fun thing that we were also kind of nervous about, because there was, in the first picture, you see this blue truck, and you might see it again. And it's very, very beautiful and super shiny. And I don't know that anyone's ever touched it with their hands. And we were working right next to it and blowing up all these balloons. And I was just like, oh my God, he's going to kill us if we do anything. If we mess up these cars. It was, that was a little nerve-wracking, I guess. So the next thing was this. That's my dad. He was dressed up as Lurch, greeting the guests. All the bridesmaids had like burnt orange dresses. All the guests arrived in full costume. And that was very fun to see all the people arrive. I definitely think for a lot of people it was a super fun wedding to attend, because they got to dress up, and it was on Halloween, so it was so much fun.
Tell about the mother of the bride.
So the bride, her dress was black, and it was stunning. It was so beautiful. And so the bride's mother, for her costume, dressed as a bride, which was hilarious. So that was a fun, and we had to be dressed up too. Like we couldn't just be walking around as vendors. We had to. I was Andy Warhol because I had a great Andy Warhol wig in my closet. So it's kind of lazy, but it was easy. So this is just kind of showing you the barn as it was being draped. I think it was like 500 yards of that black fabric that it took to do it. And then we used the acrylic chairs, which were great in the black light. They were glowing. We used, I don't know how many cases of that cobweb, which also glows in the dark with black light. We had an old coffin from I don't know, I do not know why my mom had a coffin in the basement, but she did. And so we lined it and iced it down. And so the bartender, that was the like where all the beer and everything, all the wine was kept in this big coffin. So I wanted to tell you about this. So to have something, this was kind of like I wanted all the guests to have a cool gift to take with them. And I love those prayer candles that you can buy. Like we buy them all the time at Stokes, you know, and they have a different saint on the front. You know, you like this one for good luck or whatever. And so what if we made a candle, but we did the bride and groom on it, so it's like their wedding candle. So I got Anna Frances Stroud. I knew that she would love this, so I said, I want you to create the art. So I gave her, I had a picture of the bride and groom, and then I had a photo of the bride when she was trying on her black dress. Nobody knew that her dress was going to be black. And so Anna Frances, she created on her iPad, she did this drawing from that, and, you know, combined those two images and you're going to see what she did with it. So she created this piece of art that I had turned into stickers, and we made hundreds of those, and we made these candles right here, which I found one. And then she also did a painting from it. That was our gift to them. And so that's what you'll see here. She was able to make a video of the progress of her creating this art. And you can see it develop and all the changes that she made. I think she said it was like 28 hours of work to create this work. It's pretty fabulous. And so those were the candles. And then, you know, I wanted them to be at a certain level, so I had to burn them for a while to make them all like burned down so they'd look cool on the tables. And then this was the setup for people to take those as they left. So they added something special to the whole night. And that's the actual painting, which it has the glow in the dark, has the blue moon in the back. But, you know, there's the blue moon. All right, so then I had this other, as I'm putting this all together, I had this other full circle moment. So when we started working on this, my sister lives in New Orleans, and she had left this super stressful job, and she started working for this company in New Orleans that was a balloon company. And we're like, what? A balloon company? What do you do? And she was like, we do these huge balloon installations. And we're like, what do you mean? Yeah, this is like 2020 or even maybe a little before that. And so she starts, you know, showing us, and she was like, go, you know, follow them on social media. So we start following this company. I'd never heard of anybody doing anything like this. Like, I don't even know. I only knew of like balloons, fill them with helium, float. So she goes and works for this company, and then I was totally obsessed with it. I was like, oh my God, I want to do that. Tell me how you do it. And she was like, I can't. If I tell you, don't you dare tag me in social media. I'll get fired because, you know, this woman, I guess, thought she had invented the whole balloon thing. And she definitely was very early in the process of that. So, so she told us her secrets, and so we were like, well, we're doing that at this wedding. And so I started dreaming on it, and that was my sketch. I can't believe I found that. And it just was it was insane. It was beautiful and cool, and we put black lights in it, and we had a fog machine set up in it, and that was the entrance to go into this barn, so that there was this great transformation to, you know, to go from the wedding, which was outdoors, you know, this beautiful, you know, scene where you're looking over this pond, and then you're going into this big red barn. So I really wanted there to be this transformation that you go inside. And so it has just in it, he looks like, I don't know if that's a costume or not. If so, maybe he was the Grim Reaper. Like, he might have been the real Grim Reaper right there. But it has, like, 20 foot tall. I wanted to use pieces of cane because I wanted it to be super tall and spiky, and so we spray painted all this bamboo. And then I had all this packing that came in something. It was this brown, kind of like cardboard. I know you've seen it. It kind of looks like honeycomb when you stretch it out. It's so cool, and I kept saving it and saving it. And I was like, I don't know why. And then this came along. I was like, oh no, that'll be so cool in there. And so that was pulled all through it. And then, I got all this plastic chain and spray painted it black, and it was running through it. And then I hired Mary Beth Muncie. I was like, you got to come do this because I can't do it. I had too much going on that day. It's like she can figure anything out herself. And so I was like, I'm throwing you in here with this blue truck. Don't touch that blue truck. But you just start blowing these balloons up and figure out how you're going to attach them to this contraption that we've created here. And so she did. And that's where the bride and groom ended up that I made. I had to buckle them in and take them with me to Oklahoma that day. And there's the mother of the bride there. And so that was a really huge balloon. Some of those balloons are 3 feet in diameter. But it took that to, for the scale of things to be, it couldn't be, nothing could be small about this because everything was so big. And that's it. So, I think that, I know that when we did this, we knew when we did it that we would never have a chance to do something like that again. Who else is going to do that? Who else is going to go that far with a Halloween wedding? So it was very special to be a part of something like that. And not only that, just to be given like full creative license, and to know that everything we did was going to be a surprise for the bride. And I've never really thought about the groom, but it was a surprise for him too. But, and then just to kind of, today to have this opportunity to kind of look back, that's been 4 years ago. It was all kind of in COVID-y times. Everything was kind of weird. And so I don't know that I've ever really thought about it much after it was over. It was just like, wow, that was fun. Keep going. But, then now I'm like, I've retired from teaching. And now here I am working downtown at Pink Party Company, which is my daughter's business, and she does these balloons. She wasn't even there. She couldn't have cared less about doing that day, and yet here we are still doing these wild and crazy things. And it goes back to, I guess, 5th grade, having a flower shop in your backyard. You really don't know how your life is going to come in full circles for you and things like that. And I think that's really cool because I never envisioned that any of us would be doing that. And in fact, when we did this wedding, my mom had not done a wedding in years, I don't think. I mean, we don't do that. We're not wedding people like that. We just, this one family who trusts us completely, I guess. So I still have one wedding left in me that I want to do on this scale. I'm just throwing this out here for you. But I want to do an Elvis wedding. I do have one requirement, that you cannot give me a budget. So that's I don't like to work with budgets. And as you can see, we didn't have one here either. And that's really the best kind of job. That's really the best. If you're a creative person, to be given full license and a blank check. So it's pretty awesome. We purchased cases and cases and cases of hands and bones and skeleton stuff from the Dollar Tree. We just ordered it all online because we had to have, 100 of these things. We couldn't go shopping around, buying bits and pieces. It was all bulk stuff. So
What
that's.
was the hardest thing?
I think my mother has claimed a lot of those, and they're probably, she's the director of Main Street in Aberdeen. They're probably on Main Street right
Hanging on
now.
a lamppost right now.
Yeah, they're probably wired onto something in Aberdeen, more than likely.
Lee Ann
So those, if you put those rubber masks in water, like in a clear, like a cylinder vase, we got these little battery operated waterproof tea lights that we would like turn several on, drop them down, put some clear marbles on top of them so they wouldn't float up, and then stick the mask in, put water in it, and it's super creepy and it looks great. The lighting was awesome. We also used a lot of dry ice all down the really long food table, which is where almost all the decorations were inside. And then, lighting was really important. Again, the lighting that we rented from our friend in Pontotoc, he swapped out all the bulbs with black light, and he had other exterior lighting. When I say exterior, just like surrounding in the barn, shooting black light up everywhere. Because even though it was totally dark, it wasn't. You could still see because of the black light. Those chairs were great. They were great to glow in the dark, and that was something he knew. He's like, "Oh, y'all, you got to use these, because they're gonna look so good in that black light." So, but all of the other lighting, and again, that's also easy to do on a small scale in your house, on your porch. It's fun. I think to me, that's the element that most people leave out is the lighting. And it's so easy to come by now. Everything is battery operated. It's so cheap. You can just throw it in somewhere and it just changes, especially if you want something to look spooky. But even not spooky, it's still good to throw some lights in somewhere. You don't have to start a fire either. You don't have to use real candles. You can throw in, Dollar Tree little lights. Look, I always call them little fairy lights.